Dutton here, bringing you the IM326 Extra Practice number 2 solutions on special products and factors. And this one has a puzzle that goes with it. Here's a look at that puzzle. We're trying to solve the riddle, what happens if the Jolly Green Giant steps on your house? That sounds pretty awful. So the idea here is we've got actually a couple sets of things. This first column, we have to express it as a trinomial, and the possibilities are down here below. For the next two columns, we just have to factor it into one of these squared binomials. So we're doing frontwards and backwards, basically both directions, with this squared binomial shortcut. And now, whatever we get, we have to match it up down here. So let's say, for example, E here, u plus 3 squared, let's say that I decide that that's 13. I would put E next to number 13. All right, so let's give this one a shot. So here's our opening problem. We have u plus 3 squared. For this problem, and really all the rest like it, we're going to use our shortcut, a squared plus 2ab plus b squared. Basically, we're going to square the first thing, multiply these two things together and double it to get the middle term of the trinomial, and then square the second thing to get the last term of the trinomial. So u squared is just u squared, squaring the first thing. Multiplying these together and doubling it, so this is going to be 3u times 2, which gives us 6u, positive 6u, and then 3 squared gives us 9. Matching that up over here, I see option 9 has that, so that means I'm going to put an E, because this was problem E, next to 9 down in my box below. For this next one, squaring the first thing gives me u squared. Multiplying these together gives us negative 8u, and then double that for the middle term is negative 16u. And then negative 8 squared is going to be a positive 64. So we've got u squared minus 16u plus 64. That's right here, number 2. And this was an O, so we're putting an O next to 2. On this next one, squaring the first thing gives me 4u squared. Multiplying these together gives me 10u, and then double that gives me a positive 20u for that middle term. 5 squared is 25. And the term that has all of those, or the expression, is this 13 right here. So 13 is going to get an S. So there we are. Next up, we've got problem L, 1 minus 4u squared. So 1 squared is 1. That's not too bad. Multiplying these together gives me negative 4u, and then double that is negative 8u for the middle term. And then 4u squared, that's going to be 16u squared, positive. Let me see if I can find that on the left here. Looks like it's this one right here, number 6. So we have a 6 right here that's going to be an L. On problem T, and there's only one problem T on this whole handout here, we've got u plus 2v squared. So the first thing squared is u squared. Multiplying these together is going to be 2uv, and then double that is plus 4uv for the middle term. And then 2v squared, that's going to be a 4 and a v squared that I'm adding in there. And I've got that right here, number 10, so that's going to be a T for 10. Next up, we've got the first problem U of this handout. Squaring my first thing, I've got 49u squared. Multiplying these together, I've got 21uv, and then double that, we've got a negative 42uv. And then 3v squared, that's going to be a positive 9v squared. So let me see here, 49, 42, 9, that's down here, 12. So 12 then is going to be u. For this problem, we've got the second problem O going on. So let me square my first thing. That's going to be u squared v squared. That whole thing gets squared. Multiply these together, we've got 6uv, and doubling that gives me a positive 12uv in the middle. And then 6 squared is 36. That's not so bad. Looks like I've got all of that right here with 18. So 18 all the way here is going to get an O. We're moving on to the second problem E of this puzzle. And these problems now, everything that comes after this one, including this one, these are all factor problems. So we're getting something that's hopefully a perfect square trinomial, and then expressing it as one of these squared binomials over here on the left. So our strategy for doing this is basically going to be to square root the first and the last terms stick them in a parentheses with the sign of the middle term, and then we're going to test it to make sure that 2 times the 2 things we put in there actually gives us back this middle term. So for example, on this one, the square root of t squared is t. Square root of this 4 over here gives us a 2. And the middle term's positive, so we're going to write plus 2, whole thing squared. And now I have to multiply these together and double it to see if that gives me 4t. So 2 times t is 2t, times 2 is 4t. That check works out. So that means that t plus 2 squared is our answer. And that's over here, number 15. So 15 is going to get this e that we were talking about. So there we go, 15e. For this next one, square root of the first thing is t. Square root of the last thing is going to be a 6. Middle term's negative, so we'll write minus 6, parentheses squared. And 2 times t times negative 6, that equals negative 12t, which matches the middle term here, so our check works out. T minus 6 squared then is our answer. That's under 3, so we're going to put a u next to that. For this problem, we've got the square root of our first thing giving us t. Last thing's square root is going to be a 9. Middle term's negative, so negative 9, parentheses squared. For our check, 2 times t times negative 9 is negative 18t, which does give us that middle term, so this is a good answer. T minus 9 quantity squared right here, that's number 7. So 7 is going to get this L that we have. There we are. On to this one. This is the only problem y of the whole puzzle. So square rooting the first thing gives us a 5. Last square root is going to be a t, and the middle term's positive, so plus t, parentheses squared. For the check, 2 times 5 times t, that's going to be 10t, which is what we wanted based on the original problem. So we're looking for 5 plus t quantity squared. That's right here, number 1. Number 1 then is a y. So I guess u or yule, or there's some kind of u sort of thing going on there. The next one is the only problem w of the puzzle. So square rooting our first thing, we've got 2t, and then last square root is going to be a 5. Middle term's positive, so plus 5, parentheses squared. Doing our check, we've got 2 times 2t times 5. That's 4t times 5, which is going to be 20t, which is what we had in the middle to start here. So 2t plus 5, quantity squared, that's right here, that's number 4. So 4 is a w, so there it is. For this problem, which is the second problem S of the puzzle, let's square root our first thing. So that's going to be a square root of 9t squared is 3t. Square root of the last thing, the 4, is 2. Middle term's negative, so this is minus 2, parentheses squared. And let's go ahead and check that. 2 times 3t times negative 2, that's 6t times negative 2, which is negative 12t, which matches what we've got there. So 3t minus 2, quantity squared, that's going to be right here. That's 21. Winner, winner, chicken dinner. That gets an S. This next one, problem I, the only problem I actually of this whole thing. If I wanted to use my shortcut here, I could square root the t squared, but 20 is not a perfect square. So we can't actually use the shortcut. So since we can't use the shortcut, we revert to kind of our earlier, simpler way of factoring, which is to ask, what are some factors of 20 that add up to 10? So let me think. We've got 1 and 20, that doesn't work. 2 and 10 doesn't work, although that's close. The only other one we can try is 4 and 5, which adds up to 9. There's actually no factors of 20 that add up to 10. So since there's no factors of 20 that add up to 10, this is not possible. So that means we have to go with 5 getting the I. So right there. On this one, the only problem D of the puzzle, using our square root on the first term gives us 7a. And then the square root of this 1 over here is also 1. Middle term's positive, so that's plus 1, parentheses squared. Doing our little check, 2 times 7a times 1. That does indeed give us 14a, like we started with. So 7a plus 1 squared, that's 16. So 16 is getting that D. This next one is the third problem O of the puzzle. Square rooting our first thing, we've got 4a. Square root of the last thing is 3. Middle term's negative, so that's negative 3 parentheses squared. And then multiplying these together and doubling it, 2 times 4a is 8a, times negative 3 is negative 24a, which matches what we started with. So we need 4a minus 3, quantity squared. That's right here, that's 19. So 19 is getting our third O of the puzzle. Next up, we've got the only G of the puzzle. We've got two perfect squares, so let's try our shortcut. Square root of a squared would be a. Square root of 64 would be 8. And the middle term's negative, so we would write minus 8, parentheses squared. But as always, let's go ahead and check it. So we have 2 times a times negative 8 to see if we can get that middle term. This is 2a times negative 8, which is negative 16a, which is not negative 8a. So this actually does not work with our shortcut. Since our shortcut doesn't work, we have to backtrack and use the other type of factoring where we ask, what are two factors of 64 that add up to negative 8? Well, let me think. We got 1 and 64, that doesn't work. 2 and 32 won't work. 3 doesn't go into 64. 4 and 16 definitely doesn't work. And the only thing that's left, I think, is 8 times 8, which definitely does not add up to negative 8, even if you make them both negative. Since none of our possibilities work, this actually can't be factored. It's not possible. So the one that says that is this 8 right here. So 8 is getting the G. So there we go. So you will get, this puzzle's coming together now. Here we go with the first problem M of the puzzle. And this one's kind of cute because this is literally the shortcut formula for everything we're doing on this puzzle. And you'll see that in a sec. So if we square root the first thing, that's A. Square root of the last thing is B. Middle term's positive, so this is a plus B, whole thing squared. Multiplying these together, 2 times A times B gives us, shocker, 2AB. So we're looking for A plus B squared, which is here with number 20. So 20 is going to be an M. Next up, we've got the only problem H of the puzzle. So square root of our first thing is going to be A. Square root of the last thing is going to be a 5B. Middle term's positive, so positive 5B, parentheses squared. Multiplying these together and doubling it, we have 2A times 5B. So that's 10AB, which is what we started with. So I'm looking for A plus 5B over here on the left, and it looks like I've got that down here, number 14. So 14 gets the H. Now for the only problem R of the puzzle, square root of this first thing gives us 2A. Last square root is going to be a 3B, and then we have a negative middle term, so negative 3B. 2 times 2A times negative 3B, let's check all that. So that's going to be 4A. 4A times negative 3B is negative 12AB, which matches our middle term from the original. So then 2A minus 3B, looking for that. I see that right here, number 17. So 17 gets an R. Okay, this is our final problem, the second M of the puzzle. There's only one spot left, so I don't think it's going to be a huge surprise what we end up getting for this one. It's going to be one of these 11s, but let's do it out. So square root of the first term is going to be a 10A. If I square root that B over there, that's the last term, I'm going to get a B. Middle term's negative, so negative B. 2 times 10A times negative B, that's going to be negative 20AB, which matches what we started with here. So that's going to be, let's see, 10A minus B squared. That's this number 11 right here. So 11, not surprisingly, gets an M, and we've filled in all the letters now. We filled in all the letters. Let's see if we can actually solve this puzzle. So what happens if the Jolly Green Giant steps on your house? You will get mushed rooms. Oh, okay, I see. So if you didn't know, Jolly Green Giant is actually a brand of vegetables, usually frozen vegetables, one of which is, I guess, mushrooms. And if he steps on your house, well, your rooms get mushed. So there you go. Thank you, Jolly Green Giant. Till next time, Mr. Sutton signing off.